Before we get into the podcast, I want to share with you an upcoming event that we have that I think you're going to want to join us for because it's going to bring you up to date on what's going on in pickleball in 2025. Specifically, the event is called the State of Play, where the Better Pickleball coaching team, headed by CJ and myself, will be sharing with you the latest trends that are going on in our sport, strategically with shots, rules, and otherwise. It's a free event, but you do need a ticket because of the limited space in the room. It's also a live event, so you get to ask us some questions. We're going to send you a survey beforehand where you can share with us what's going on and what you're thinking about so that we can answer it during the event. It's just going to be a lot of fun and interactive live event on a Saturday afternoon where we can talk about pickleball. I'll put a link down in the show notes. You can also just go to betterpickleball.com if that's easier for you to get your ticket. And I hope you can join us and look forward to seeing you on February 22nd. Now let's dive into the podcast.
Hello and welcome to Pickleball Therapy, the podcast dedicated to your pickleball improvement. Hope you're having a great week. My name is Tony Roig. I am the host of this weekly podcast. It's a pleasure to be with you. This week, we're going deep into the idea of peeling back the onion, right? We're going to talk about pickleball as an onion because that is exactly what it is. And the onion is a great analogy / metaphor that allows us to take a look at how we engage with this sport in different areas. We're going to explore different areas: play, improvement, yourself as an athlete and as a human being. And I think you're going to find a lot of value out of this idea of pickleball being an onion. So if you're a long time listener to the podcast, you're probably sitting there going like, I like bowl of ice cream, but it's a different application. You'll see. So the onion, I think, is going to work well for you. Before we dive into the podcast, a couple housekeeping notes. I've been talking the last few weeks about how pickleball therapy is but one piece of a bigger puzzle, of a bigger coaching service that we provide, which is called Better Pickleball. If you're already a part of the Better Pickleball community, then you know what's coming up. And so I don't need to bore you with that here because you'll get the emails and you can make decisions about that there. But if you're not on the Better Pickleball email list, make sure you join that because then you'll be notified of events coming up. We have a State of the Union around the time of this podcast. We're going to have a really nice boot camp in March and things like that. So betterpickleball.com and subscribe to the email list. Taking a sip of water. I'll be right back. All right, I'm hydrated. We're ready to go. So let's dive into this idea of pickleball being an onion. And let's start from this premise. It is 100% normal, 100% natural for you and any other pickleball player to want to know it all. We want everything. We want to know everything there is to know about pickleball, and we want to know it yesterday, right? Not possible. Not possible because pickleball is a very complex sport. You know, and it's interesting. Yeah, I wrote a little piece about this recently about the idea is that, you know, at first blush, when you first started playing pickleball, it's just so simple, right? You just a little plastic ball, a little paddle, go out to the court, bop, 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 hit the ball around, super cool, and you're good to go. And then you play for a little while, and you're like, there's more to this game. Then you play a little longer, and you find out there's more, and the more you play, the deeper it goes, and you just keep going deeper and deeper. And really, you find out that pickleball is a very complex sport. And that's what keeps us coming back because it's this really complex puzzle, both in terms of play as well as ourselves and how we interact with it. And it challenges us, right? And it keeps us young, right? Keeps us engaged, keeps us active, keeps us doing this thing, pursuing this next step along our pickleball journey. And that's something that we should embrace and not allow to overwhelm us or get us frustrated. And thinking about pickleball like an onion is something that can help with that. Because, you know, when you think about an onion, I like to think about an onion this way. I don't know about you, but I love onions. Onions are delicious. You know, cooked, they're like so powerful. You can do anything you want with them. Almost every recipe out there has onion in it. And it's the Trinity, right? The onion goes into just everything. And so I had this onion, right? And I think it's a vegetable. It's a root, right? It's a root. And so I can use it for all these purposes, but it also can cause me to cry, right? So it's delicious, complex, deep, but can also lead to crying. So it's perfect for pickleball if you think about it that way. But the layers of it are really interesting because when you think about an onion, right? You peel back a layer and there's another layer of onion. You peel back that layer and it just keeps going. It keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. Not infinitely, but for a long time. And so when you think about your pickleball that way, you think about it like, okay, I am currently on whatever layer I am at. I know that once I peel this layer back, I will see something else in this sport. And then I will, if I want to, keep going. I keep peeling that layer back. And then, oh my God, there's another layer and peel it back and there's another layer. And that's awesome because you're never going to exhaust the layers. But when you think about it that way in terms of layers, you're going to think about it. You think about yourself as being more patient. You think about yourself as being more relaxed because you know that you're working on a layer, right? You're not working on the onion at that stage. You're focused on a layer and you can be patient. You work on this layer knowing that I'll get through the layer eventually. And then once I get to that layer, I'll start working on the next layer. And also allows you to focus because you get away from, I need to know everything right now. I need to know everything there's to know in pickleball immediately, or else something bad is going to happen, or else I'm failing, or whatever it is. That goes away because the only thing I need to worry about is what? The layer that I'm currently working on. Knowing that once I'm done with that layer, there's another layer, and then I can worry about that layer then. And then after that, there'll be another layer, and another layer, and another layer. But in the meantime, I can focus on what I'm doing now because the reality is I can't get to layer number 4 inside the onion until I've mastered or I've peeled back layers 1, layer 2, and layer 3, right? The first 3 layers before I get to layer 4. So if we understand that, we sit back and say, okay, wait a minute. This thing that I'm thinking about is layer 4. Let me focus right now on layer 2. Let's say I'm on layer 2. I can focus on layer 2, knowing that I need to get through that to get to layer 3, to get through that, then to get to layer 4, and not jump ahead to layer 4, which is one of the reasons why a sporadic kind of approach to pickleball can be so frustrating. Sporadic might be the right term. I mean, like basically shotgun, right? Where you're just kind of picking YouTube videos or friends at the court telling you things like that. That can be very frustrating because what's happening is oftentimes let's say you get a video on YouTube that says 5 tips or something, right? Um, you'll find tips in there that all the tips could be like layers you're not at yet. Some of like one tip might be layer 2 where you're at right now, and then 2 tips might be layer 3, and one tip might be layer 6. So you sit there and there's no differentiation, right? On YouTube, it's just tips. And so you sit there and you're like, okay, I'm going to work on tip 4, right? Well, tip 4 is layer 6 or layer 4, and you're just like, That's not where you're at right now." So you're trying to tackle something that frankly isn't isn't going to work because you don't have the other layers peeled back yet. And it's just frankly a waste of time. If you think about it, because you're on layer, trying to master layer 4, it's on layer 2. So try and think about your progress in the game as an onion, as being different layers, and I think you'll find that it's much more productive for you because of the focus and because of the patience that you'll have. You can also think about it in terms of your play, and I'm going to talk about you in a second. But in terms of your play, you can think about it like when I'm out playing, right now I'm focused on, let's say you're focused on your 4 shot. Okay. You're on the return side. I'm focusing on my 4 shot. And so that's what I'm going to spend my energy on, right? My bandwidth to deal with or to think about as I'm playing. That allows me to focus on that layer and not worry about, the potential pop-up, on shot number 23 during the rally. And then I'm upset about that. It got nothing to do with anything because it's not the layer of the onion that I'm on. And I understand that there's additional layers, threat identification, weakness assessment, being able to exploit different opportunities that are presented by my opponents and all those sorts of things. All that stuff is happening on the court. It's a layer that perhaps is not yet for you. In other words, you're not at that layer yet. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just like, again, go back to the onion. The layer inside the onion, it's there, right? You can't see it because you haven't peeled back the layers on the outside, but there's a layer on the inside. And so the fact that I can't yet see that layer doesn't mean it's not there, doesn't mean there's anything wrong with me, doesn't mean anything other than I still got to peel back some layers to get to that particular layer, right? So it basically makes things not as negative for the player, for us or for you, right? Because it's more objective. You know there's more layers inside the onion. You know you can't see them right now, but you don't need to be upset about it because there's a reason you can't see them right now is because you're still working on the layer that you're on right now and you got to peel that one off before you can see the other layer. So while you're playing, it also gives you some comfort there. So in your progress and your improvement, right, work, it gives you comfort, focus, and patience on what you're doing. When you're playing, stop worrying about things that are layers that even though you kind of know they're there, right? I know that there's a thing there. I can't see it right now because I'm not working on that. So I don't worry about it. I'll worry about it when I got to worry about it. I keep working on the layer I'm working on now. And then think about it for yourself. Okay. Um, Last week's podcast, I talked about this podcast some, and I talked about the effect of this podcast on me personally and on other players. And that's been a process just like an onion, right? Just layer after layer after layer, both in terms of uncovering parts of the mental side of pickleball that are helpful to me and helpful to you, helpful to other listeners. That's a process over time, layer after layer after layer, and also applying it to yourself. Applying it for me personally to me has been a layering process of one layer at a time, one layer at a time, until I am where I am today. And knowing that I'm not where I'm going to be in a week, in a month, and in a year, because I will continue to peel back layers of the game, peel back layers of myself and my understanding of myself, peel back layers of my understanding of life and psychology and sports and the mind and the body and all these things that work together, um, to continue to work on improving myself, both as a pickleball player and as a human being. So that's this whole week's podcast. It was a deep podcast. We're not going to do a riff this time because that was a lot of content right there to chew on. Literally, I guess, like an onion. So, think about that as you work on yourself. Just consider the layers, allow the layers to be what they are so that it's not frustrating to you that you can't see layer number 32 on the inside of the onion yet because you're working on layer 7, layer 8, layer 9, whatever layer you're on right now. Focus on that, get the most out of that, and enjoy the process, right? Enjoy the peeling of that one layer. Just enjoy the little peeling it back, a little bit of time. Maybe you see a little bit on the inside of the next layer. Layer 10's there looking at you. And you start seeing it a little bit at a time, and next thing you know, layer 9 is gone, and you're on layer 10, and you just keep going. All right, so hopefully that framing will help you out with your progress, your play, as well as your personal development. If you enjoyed the podcast, please consider rating and reviewing it. Let's get up to that 4.9. Just kidding. You'll understand if you heard last week's podcast. And always share it with your friends. Remember, if you enjoy the podcast, they probably will too. Hope you have a great week, and I'll see you on the next episode. Be well.